Hongkongers are set to vote for members of the next Legislative Council on December 19th, in the first Legco poll since Beijing revamped the city's electoral system earlier this year. Here with me are three hopefuls. We have Simon Lee, who works for the China Resources Group, Regina Ip, who is running for Hong Kong Island West and chairwoman of the New People's Party, and business magnate Allan Zeman. Both Allan and Simon are running for the Election Committee constituency. Before we get into it, I'd like each of you to tell me in 20 seconds or less why voters should vote for you. Let's start with you, Simon.
Hi, I'm candidate number 17, Simon Lee, from China Resources. I'm now working for the Greater Bay Area and also the chairman of the Basic Law Foundation.
And why should people vote for you?
Because I have the capability and able to help and contribute to Hong Kong.
Regina?
I'm Regina Ip, candidate number 1 in Hong Kong Island West constituency. I have 29 years of government experience, 30 years of legislative experience. I think the government desperately needs change in their mindset and culture, and I hope to be re-elected to propel change in governance.
Thank you, Regina. Allan?
I'm Allan Zeman. For those of you who don't know me, I guess you don't live in Hong Kong. The reason I'm running is that I feel that I've done so much for Hong Kong. With this new legislative process, I really think this can really make things happen. Hong Kong can really change, and I really think that I can be part of helping Hong Kong to move forward.
Thank you so much. So to get us warmed up, we've got some quick rapid fire questions. If you know the answer, just feel free to jump in. If you don't, we'll just move on. So we're going to start with who is the chairman of the Electoral Affairs Commission?
Judge Fong Hua.
Correct.
Barnaby Fong.
Barnabas. Can you name one of the new functional constituencies which has been introduced by Beijing's overhaul? One of the new ones.
Commercial number 3rd.
Yes, commercial third. Brilliant. Which geographical constituency does Tai Po belong to?
NT Northwest.
NT Northeast.
Oh, sorry, Northeast. NT Northeast. You know.
Almost there, almost there.
Close.
It's a tough one. There's some
Close,
new ones, aren't there?
yeah.
What is the average waiting time for a public flat in Hong Kong?
5.9 years.
Yeah.
5.9 years, exactly
Yes.
right,
Right,
Regina. Anyway, let's move on to some targeted questions. I want to start with you, Allan. You're the Lan Kwai Fong Group chairman. You sit on various boards. You're, a busy businessman. How will you have enough time to devote to Legco, which includes scrutinizing bills? It can be quite a time-consuming and lengthy process. Do you think you've got to have enough time to devote to it?
I've actually thought about that. I do sit on a lot of boards, and I do many things. But I am lucky, even with the boards I sit on or all the things I do, I get things pretty quickly. I have that ability to just read through quite quickly and have kind of a photographic memory that I can really not take a long time to analyze something and think it through. I've done it on almost every committee I sit on. And so I really think that, I will have help as well. And I think that once I have it, I'll find a way to make it through. If I can't do it, I wouldn't do it.
And Regina, there have been suggestions that you're eyeing up the city's top job, but haven't yet secured Beijing's green light for that, which is why you've decided to run for another term in Legco. Can you promise that you will complete your four-year Legco term if you are elected?
This is really a hypothetical question that it is inappropriate for me to give an answer. I've tried to run for the CE post 2 times as legislators, and no one demanded that I should complete my term if I got elected as chief executive, So I don't think that would be an issue if I got sufficient nominations.
Understood. And Simon, you are among a few Hong Kongers who worked for the mainland government, and now you work for the state-owned China Resources Group. How would you address concerns that you might put mainland's interests ahead of Hong Kongers?
I can't see any contradiction between them. The interest in the mainland and also for the Hong Kong one is they are in alignment, and therefore the work as a state-owned enterprise here as China Resources will be helpful to my work in the Legislative Council.
And how would you characterize Carrie Lam's term, and would you support a second term, Simon?
It's too early to answer this question, I think. Yeah, she haven't expressed her willingness until this moment, and the primary criteria and the only criteria is the best candidate for the election. But we can't see all the candidates already on the stage now, and too early to answer this question now.
And how would you characterize her term so far?
Everyone in Hong Kong can see it.
Regina, what about you? How would you characterize Carrie Lam's term, and would you support another one?
Well, this is really a very difficult and embarrassing question for me because she's the chairman of the Executive Council, of which I'm a member. So she is my leader. It's really inappropriate for me to comment publicly on her performance. It's better for the community and the EC members if Mrs. Lam decides to run to form a judgment. It's really premature for me to answer this question at this stage.
Allan, would you support Regina or Carrie Lam?
She's, well, I've been with Regina before. I've been with Carrie. She's also my chair lady I sit on our Economic Advisory Committee. And so, listen, they're both very, very capable. And, Carrie had her problems it was the difficult term that she had. We went through 2019, which I don't think anyone could have handled at that time, but we came out, thank God, with China's help, of course. And I think that she understands, the problems she had before. I think she's much stronger now. She seems much more self-confident now. But again, it depends who's going to be running, and may the best candidate win. I mean, that's, in all fairness, we really have to see who's out there, and for the good of Hong Kong, for the people of Hong Kong, just make the right decision.
And Allan, you brought up 2019. I want to, in an interview in July 2019, you backed the idea of an independent inquiry into the clashes between protesters and police over the extradition bill as the only way to solve the crisis. 2 years on, you're calling to safeguard national security, but you've no longer mentioned the need for mending the rift in society in the wake of the protests. Do you think Hong Kong can move on without addressing the source of discontent that sparks the 2019 protests? And what do you think the next government should do in mending the existing divides that still exist in Hong Kong society?
Well, I think, the divide, well, there's many, many reasons. At that time when I said that, we were in the height of the protests, and no one knew what was happening, and the many young people were calling for police commission to investigate everything, and so at that time it seemed like one way of kind of settling things down and trying to make things move forward and everyone get together again. But after that, we've seen we've heard many different things of why these protests were happening and who was behind it and all these other things. And so it's not something that you can snap your fingers and say, oh, everybody be in love again. I mean, there's a whole host of problems. And the way I look at it, since 1997, for 24 years, I've said this quite often now, one country, two systems was a great idea from Deng Xiaoping. The problem was that it has many flaws that we found in the 24 years that we've had it. I call this the new 1997. Now with the security law, with the way forward, Hong Kong, it's one country, two systems, but now with Chinese characteristics, China's changed as well. And so I think that it'll take a while for people to get back, but I think that definitely we're on the way. We're on the right way. And those people that don't like it are leaving, BNO and all the other things, no problem. I've been through it in 1997. People left and then people came back, and some people will come back. So I think that we have to, housing is a big problem, education is a big problem, upward mobility for youth is a huge problem.
And Regina, I see you nodding there. For the people who are staying in Hong Kong, how do you see addressing the issues of division within society?
First, we are not the only society which is divided and polarized. You know, this is not unique to Hong Kong. Secondly, I think we can take a lead from how the British administration back in the 1970s healed the rift in our society. There were serious riots in 1966 because of a 5-cent increase of the Star Ferry fare, and year-long protests in 1967 over spill of the Cultural Revolution. There were bomb explosions, people set on fire and all that. Then what happened? There was a change of leadership. And when Governor Legco came, he delivered good governance. He launched a 10-year public housing program. He built new towns, he built cultural centers all over the territory, music offices, everybody was happy. So I think to answer your earlier question, when I was in Aberdeen, an elderly man who lives in a public housing estate told me, he gave the right answer. He said he thinks the Hong Kong government owes Hong Kong's young people a chance to own their homes.
Correct.
No? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And also a chance to fulfill their dreams.
Yes.
Whatever they want to do, to sing or dance or cook, I think we need to give them the opportunity to realize their potential to the full. You know, good governance, you know, in the next administration will remove a lot of the rage, particularly in the housing area.
Exactly.
And Simon, you're an expert on the basic law, having studied law at Tsinghua University. The ultimate goal in the basic law is achieving universal suffrage for the election of the chief executive and all Legco members. Next year marks the halfway point to the 50-year lifespan of one country, two systems. Do you support restarting the electoral reform process in the next term of Legco?
It's always the ultimate point under the basic law. But we have to ask ourselves, is Hong Kong and the whole Hong Kong society is already ready to make such a kind of discussion or to have a consensus on this goal? To be sincere, I don't think Hong Kong this moment is already ready to make such a kind of decision, and therefore it may not be a good time to have such a kind of discussion at this moment. I think the most important or the focus today is to see how does it work for this new election system, for this Legco election and also the election in the coming March.
I think the priority for the next Legco must be to deal with the land and housing shortage problem.
Right.
You know.
I agree. If you look at Singapore, their laws are much stricter than Hong Kong, but yet 90% of the people in Singapore own their own home because the late Lee Kuan Yew was able to adapt mortgages and homes to everyone in society, and they're much, much happier than Hong Kong. If I look around the world at all the systems, the so-called Western democracies that everybody has been playing up and trying to emulate them, they're a mess at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, quite honestly, every single one of them that everybody, so I don't think universal suffrage is at the moment the answer for Hong Kong. We have to, it's a process that we have to get.
In
we
the
have
coming
to mature,
years, though?
We have to mature into it.
In the coming years?
Yes, you have to mature
Is that
into
something,
it.
because
We have
some
to do the healing.
some centrist candidates do support restarting. Would you support them if they floated this idea?
We must get our priorities right.
Exactly.
You know, on legislation, I think we need to fulfill our constitutional obligation to enact Article 23.
Exactly.
That has been outstanding for more than 24 years. Macau did it in 2009. We ought to do it. It's our duty. It's part of the bargain under one country, two systems. By the way, you notice Singapore was excluded from Joe Biden's democracy summit, not regarded as democratic, yet its people are happy because its government is able to deliver.
If you give people a good life, no matter what the system does work. I have many businesses in China, and you know, many countries around the world, oh, China's communist, China, human rights, all these things. I can tell you, my staff in China have a better life than my staff in Hong Kong. And I've seen China go up, 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 and will continue to rise, not in a negative way, but really their whole mantra for the government is to make the life of the people better, everyone's life, not the lower class have a different life, the upper class have a different life. No, they want to spread common prosperity, that everybody has a good life. So it's time that people realize, listen, I've been in China for 45 years, I've been in Hong Kong, I've lived in the West. I've seen every kind of system, and I've grown up under different systems. And I can tell you, once you understand everything, you understand the system for China really does work. Hong Kong will find its own system. It didn't work before. I'm not sure at this moment, I'm not saying never universal suffrage, but if you bring it in too early, it creates divisions, as happened in the United States and in the UK and in other places.
And
It's not
speaking
what
of
we
the
want.
people, I wanted to bring you here Simon. Carrie Lam has sought to cast low voter turnout as an indicator of good governance. Is turnout really meaningless, as she suggested? And with the perceived low voter enthusiasm in this election, do you think this affects the mandate and legitimacy of Legco?
Maybe I would like to change a little bit for this statement. I agree with Regina and Allan. What is the most important this moment is moving forward. Moving forward for all people, but not for part of the people in the Hong Kong society. Let's say just for the commercial sector or for the labor, we have to move forward already for all people. And the other importance is we have to re-establish the trust between people, people inside the Hong Kong society and also the officials and the people.
How do you hope to regain that trust?
Communication, explanation, everything. Just like talking about the national security law, quite a lot of people, they are afraid of or scared of the law because they even don't know what is the law is talking about. They don't even know what is the law is inside the law or the statutes. And therefore, what I have to do, or I have to do for a couple of years, is to try to explain what is inside the law and what is the statutes are talking. And therefore, I think explanation and understanding is the first step for the re-establishment of the trust.
And do you think the turnout rate is really meaningless in this election?
I agree that.
If I could butt in.
Sure,
I think-
I'd love to hear all of
And
your
I'd like
opinion.
to butt in as
Yeah.
well.
But can
I'd
we
like
allow
to-
Simon to
Yeah,
answer?
sure.
Do you
Okay,
think
all
do you
right,
think
you know.
it's
Yeah. Thank you.
meaningless? Do you think it's meaningless?
I think it is meaningless. I think it is meaningful. But we have to understand academically that there are lots of reasons that affect the wage. Carrie Lam mentioned just one, and maybe because the system is new to all people, and people are waiting to see how it works. These may be another reasons.
And Regina, I know you want to.
Well, I
have
think
you on this.
the logic of Carrie's turnout comment is fundamentally flawed, because if we follow her logic, in 2019 there was very high turnout and there was landslide defeat for the pro-establishment camp. Does it mean
70%
that
and almost 2
reflects
million.
a failure of her governance? I know if we pursue her argument to the logical end, one would draw that conclusion. But I agree with Simon that this year's turnout will be different from the previous elections. The system is new. A lot of constituencies have been redrawn. A lot of people didn't realize, those in anti-West didn't realize they're now in Hong Kong Island West, and they didn't realize they can only choose one candidate, So there have been a lot of changes, and they cannot fold the ballot paper. There has not been sufficient publicity on the new arrangements on the part of the government. And because it is a new system, the turnout is bound to be lower than before. But turnout is important. I'm waiting to see how people vote for me, in what sort of areas. I will analyze the data very carefully myself.
And Allan, I mean, we did see in our last citywide polls, almost 2 million people vote, 70% voter turnout. There is an enthusiasm in Hong Kong to vote. What do you say about whether the voter turnout is lower, and what does that mean?
Well, it was different. There was a turnout to vote because many of the young people just wanted to get rid of the
that's
existing
their choice,
establishment.
isn't it?
No, I understand, but it also destabilizes. Hey, it doesn't mean that if it would have happened, doesn't mean that Hong Kong would have been a better place. The way to get people voting and happy is if they have a happy life, if they have a better life. If my life is good, if I have a good house, if I have a good life, a good future for myself, I'm happy with the government. I don't care what the system is. So whatever the system is, we have to make people happy. We have to get to the root of the problem, the housing problem, all the other problems that have been mentioned. We have to fix that quickly. Yes, this system is a new system. only 1,500 people will vote for the 40 seats in the EC, in the election committee. And so obviously you're taking a big chunk of voters out of that, which you didn't have last time. And so, yes, there will be, I predict there will be a lot less voters coming out only because the system is less. But everyone has a chance to vote in geographical constituency, in GC. Everyone, if they want, if they don't want, you know, in the past, before the last election, voter turnout was always mediocre. During the British days, we had no voting. So I mean, it's a totally different thing. I mean, we're only 24 years since the handover, and during the British days, we were all here, and I've been here for 50 years, and I can tell you, no one even thought about an election, and no one even complained.
Well, I'm not sure if that's true, but but Regina, let's
there
go
is
to you.
time if I could butt in. You know, actually, the feedback I got from some young people in 2019, why they were so enthusiastic, was that they thought they could have a regime change. They thought they could, through winning all the DC seats and then the Legco seats and the election committee seats, they would control the government, you know, and change the constitutional system. Now, after the new electoral laws made by Beijing, it is clear to these enthusiasts or fanatics that there will be no regime change. We will be voting for good or bad governance. We should be voting for people with competence. So the game has changed.
And speaking of the game that has changed, who is not taking part in this election is the opposition. They are not taking part. What can be done to regain the legitimacy of the legislature to represent people with all views? Simon? Regina?
If I could butt in again, because I think there is at least one candidate whose colors is black and yellow.
Right.
I think he's a proxy candidate for the opposition. And
One
there will be
out of...
at least one. And there are others. There's also an independent Democrat in my constituency. And there are actually all candidates, pro-establishment candidates in all constituencies are being challenged. So I think we will have a multicolor.
Well, the Hongkong's Democracy Party is not taking place, and most of the opposition have said they
not
won't.
officially taking place.
So,
I think they're covertly supporting some candidates.
But overall, the opposition has said they won't take place.
But
What do you say?
Loss.
What do you say that won't
their
represent
loss.
the all?
It's their loss.
It's their loss. What I say, it's their loss because they have the right to vote. Nobody's if they want to boycott the vote, it's fine. In the U.S. or other countries, if people don't want to vote, they don't vote.
And do you think Legco will still represent people with all views?
I think Legco will represent everyone. That Legco will just do things that will help Hong Kong. It's not a question. People must remember we're part of China. We're not an independent country on our own or city on our own. We are part of China, and so it's like a landlord in a shopping center. The landlord has the right to dictate what the tenants can do, and so you know, in general, Hong Kong itself is still very free, very open. We've got stability back, and now if we can all muster to get together and find the way forward, and with the Greater Bay Area and all these things that China has really offered to Hong Kong, it's for ours to either screw up or move forward. And
Simon,
And I agree with Allan that the most important is they have the choice. They have the right. They have the right to join the election, but that is their own choice now. I think it is also essential for all us to understand the behind philosophy. That is not a higher democracy or lower one, but a choice of different kind of philosophy and theory of democracy. Because we can see under the new system, the whole process is getting longer. In the past, maybe we get the vote for every individual, and they all vote on the same day. Okay, we get the vote on the day. But nowadays, under the new system, people, for the representative of the electoral committee, they vote on 19th. But before that, they have to get all the opinions from their group or those who he or she is representing. And therefore, the process is getting longer. That is another kind of democratic and election system and theory.
And speaking of the election committee constituency, it's the new constituency that's in Legco. It's voted for by less than 1,500 people. Alan, how are you going to connect with members of the public if you're elected?
Well, if you look at the makeup of the 40, well, there's 51 candidates right now, but eventually there will be 40. They come from so many different walks of life. He's from China Resources, I'm from business, there's professors, there's, there are so many different members of, in the election committee, which we didn't have before. And so I really, really believe that it is very representative. And whether people want to vote or don't want to vote or care, all I say is, let's try it. Let's see if it works. Let's make it work. Because I've looked at the other systems around the world, and as far as I'm concerned, I was very disappointed. They don't work. The China system works for China, and I'm not saying that we have the China system here, but I'm just saying that let's give it a chance. I mean, the last one didn't work. Let's give it a chance, and let's all work together. Otherwise, all we're going to do is be fighting. We'll have what's going on in the West between the Republicans and the Democrats at the moment. Oh, Trump won the election, Biden didn't win the election, it's not true. It's, I mean, you want that? That's a mess. And trust me, I have a lot of businesses in the U.S., I have a lot of friends in the U.S., and I can tell you, many are very, very scared because they're not sure of what is going on.
I think the new Legco will be more broadly represented.
Why?
By high information people about their business like Alan or Simon, grassroots women, people who understand the mainland well. In the past, our old Legco had a problem in that there were many of my colleagues who were opposed to China. Whatever has to do with China, national education, national security, national anthem, they will object. That is not the right way forward for Hong Kong. But the new Legco will be much more broadly represented and more rational and more aligned with the overall development of our country, and that is good for Hong Kong.
Laura.
And Simon, I want to give you the last thoughts.
Yeah, you can see the candidates today from different social stratification, grassroots, business sector, everywhere. But in the past, you can see just two camps against or opposed. That is not as widely represented as today. And therefore, it is another kind of theory and another kind of body representative arrangement for the system.
And how are you going to connect with members of the public?
Because when we are running the campaign, we are not only talking and exchanging ideas with the people who has the vote, but we also get involved and have a discussion and also have different kind of activities with all other people in the public also.
If I could put in one last word.
Final thoughts.
You may have
we're nearly at time, I'm so sorry.
You may have noticed the property magnates, they have lost a lot of votes. Right. A lot of them gone to SMEs, and that's a fairer system.
And I can tell you something, the last thing, is that Legco was the engine that was able to pass bills, able to make people's lives better. What happened in the past with the old system, I learned a new word, filibuster. Every bill that was supposed to get passed to help the people of Hong Kong took 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, people standing on tables, acting up, all that kind of thing. That to me was an embarrassment to Hong Kong. And I really feel that this Legco, because of the system now, China realized that, and because they changed the system, now bills can get passed. We could see this past year, 46 bills got passed, and it was kind of a record in the time frame. And I think that going forward, you're going to have many bills will be able to be passed. Why? To help the people of Hong Kong, all the people of Hong Kong, not just a certain group. And so, honestly, just have some faith, and I promise you, you'll see a much better Hong Kong.
I think that's all the time we have. Thank you all so much for joining me, Simon Lee, Regina Ip, and Allan Zeman.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, and the election is December 19th.
Yes.